and
Okay.
how you got involved with Caterpillar.
We started in business in 1914, my grandfather. 1956, my dad took over. And in I'd say in the early 1970s, my sister Linda started coming into the business after she graduated. Then Carol came into the business, and then I came into the business in 1980. In 1989, we moved out to this operation. We moved from neighborhood of, say, 14,000 square feet to this operation, which at that time was about 75,000 square feet. Started doing work for Caterpillar in the 60s. And in the 60s, and I'd say more in the 70s, my sister, Linda, she ran the Caterpillar account with my dad. And as the company grew, she took over HR and all the office side of the business. And Carol, she handles all the payroll and MRP side of the business, and I handle the plant and the sales side of the business.
So, Caterpillar is a large part of your business?
Yes, yes.
It's kind of dependent on Caterpillar, is it?
Yep.
Like CGN is dependent on Caterpillar.
Right, yep. A good portion of our business is Caterpillar, but we're working on trying to diversify at the same time. We've been working on that for a couple of years now, had a lot of success at diversifying, but Caterpillar still holds the majority.
When you're working with Caterpillar, do they have standards of training that you must meet?
They have expectations of what suppliers need to have their employment handle. Things like geometric tolerancing, reading a cat print, the things along the lines of 1E specs, engineering specs, the day-to-day type operations that you're required to understand their engineering standards to correlate it back into manufacturing principles.
Okay. How do they expect you to get the training that's necessary?
Well, they supply that. They supply materials such as geometric tolerancing, GAD, or reading cat prints, blueprint reading, or you go to Caterpillar and you will take a class called Train to Trainer. So they train an individual, which is referred to as the trainer, and then that person would come over and they would end up doing the training here. So we have a full-time trainer here, Robert, who takes their material and matches and fixes it so that it integrates into our system, and then correlates that back into our employment, and then he teaches that.
How about courses such as QPAP, PPAP, 5S and 8D?
All that, we've gone through that as well. You have FMEA, PPAP, APQP, 5S, all the other aspects. But a lot of that all ties back to TS. So a lot of that training was done through a consulting company when we implemented TS 16949 into our operation.
Okay. So how then did you get involved with CGN?
CGN came about at the request of our buyer. We're in the process of pursuing Caterpillar certification. To meet Caterpillar certification standards, you have to be at 500 ppm for a bronze, that's parts per million for defects, 95% for Class A delivery. There's other things you have to have besides that, like TS 16949 certification. PPAPs have to be submitted on time, but in a nutshell, those two are the key things, is to run at 500 ppm or better for a bronze, because they'll have other criteria, but 500 for the bronze, and 95% delivery across your customer base of Caterpillar. And we have been working hard on trying to achieve the 500 ppm. So our buyer at Caterpillar, he made a recommendation for us to start a relationship with CGN, where CGN would help get our company back on track. Start at the basics of our infrastructure. Start down at our standard operating procedures. Start looking at what job duties are and expectations for certain people, and to start to build an infrastructure to support the current business that we have today. So that's how we got connected with CGN.
And how long has that been, that relationship?
I would say early June of 2008.
Okay, so it's been 3 months now.
Right.
And how has it been working out for you, do you think?
It's gone well. At the very beginning phase, you kind of go through that initial phase where you maybe resist a little bit of what someone wants to suggest as an outsider, what you need to do and change in your company, and then you come to the realization that maybe you're not doing it the right way all the time. And then through, I guess, trial and error, you become a believer. And once you start to see stuff that are new tools, using old tools differently, can help you in your business. Good example is things like receiving inspection. We beat receiving inspection hard. We work it very, very hard. And CGN came in and said, well, let's take it from the aspect of where you're overworking it and work smarter at it and come up with some tools that will help guide the individuals back in that area so that they work more effectively. So in a nutshell, instead of those people going home at the end of the day working hard all day, they now go home at the end of the day working much smarter during the day and using some means of statistics, sampling lot, things of that nature to work on managing what we're going to inspect at receiving. And it's more of a system-driven process other than a hit and miss. CGN will take that and roll that over here in the next week or so on the final inspection side. And they're going to take that same philosophy of concept of C equals 0, skip lot, that type of mechanism, and apply that to the final inspection side.
Okay. As you take a look at what CGN's done for your company, how would you compare their techniques and their processes with other companies that you've worked for in this kind of an industry?
That's tough because we haven't had a lot of exposure on the outside of our four walls with other individuals coming in to help guide us, counsel us. We've been kind of like taking care of it on our own, and I don't have much to benchmark it against.
But you've been very pleased with the outcome so far.
We've been pleased, but we're not where we need to be, and there is still a lot of areas for some key opportunity for improvement, and those have been recognized as areas of improvement that will be tackled. But it's kind of like it's almost like the river, water flowing through a river. Right now CGN is working with us to remove the big boulders, and once we get these boulders removed, the water is going to flow through better, and we're going to start to see some trend line improvements. Then CGN is going to take it down to another notch and start working with larger rocks in the river. And when we get down to that point, then we're going to get down to some pebbles. When we get down to the pebbles, at that point, I think we'll be in a control phase where we can just take and start to see small incremental improvements in our numbers. But right now we're working on the boulders. And that's where I think we're seeing some gains at.
If someone were to ask you to make a recommendation on CGN, what would your answer be to them?
I would encourage them to start a relationship with CGN, and at the same time, while they started their relationship, they need to understand that even though you may think you've got a good system in place, which we have a good system, it's not a system that's great utilizing all the tools that are out there. And it's good to have an outsider come in and point those things out to you.
I think I've seen that over the years. And
Yep.
The things that I've done, as I said, I'm an organizational man. When you get to a certain point in your company, and you're taking a look at, the growth comes to a point where your organization doesn't fit. Have you taken a look at those kinds of opportunities and said, well, is my organization where it ought to be today?
We're working on that now.
Okay.
With our customer, on trying to identify what is our niche, what is our core competency, and as we determine what our key niche is, then at that time, we'll take a lot of the things that we're applying with CGN and apply that now based on products and commodities, and it will allow us to see further gains by utilizing that system that we put in place.
So I guess you'd say you were happy that you brought CGN in at this point.
We're very happy that Caterpillar got us tied with them, yes.
That's what I want to hear.
Yep.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close this all out?
The only one thing is I hope that people understand how you got to be patient in these things, because the whole idea of changing culture, changing systems, changing job duties, changing how we used to always do it, it takes time to get that empowered in your company. It's just not where you just write the procedure or write a new control plan and hit the light switch and say, today it's done, moving on to something else. It just takes time.